Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Joining us on this segment for Bilingual Websites in 2024 is Yanari Guerrero. She is our Senior Project Manager in Web Development. She's been with us for several years now. And when a member joins our program, oftentimes the first thing that they need is a website. And Yanari will manage a project from soup to nuts with all of the web development staff in the company. So thanks for joining us, Yanari.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm happy.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot to get into, and I want to first start off with what you describe as the triangle of web design, the triangle of, rather, the pyramid of web design. Let's talk about how you particularly see web design, because I've talked to a lot of designers and developers. You see it totally differently, and you kind of work backwards now compared to most developers and project managers. So let's talk about how you first see the framework of building a site.
Yes, well, most of the people see it design as the first thing, but to me, it's not. To me, you need to create the content first, and you have to have a strong base for the development before building the design. I will show a little bit more of it later, but what I want to say is that people often request design. They request, I want this to show in the design, I want this for my website, but they don't really pay a lot of attention to the content or what is in the back end of it. So I think these three things, it's going to give you a strong website. It's what's going to create a very beautiful website, because I know at the end of the day that everyone just wants to look beautiful online, and that's the idea of the website.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's when you build a site, it's not really how do I want to look, it's more like what do I want to communicate first, right? And so I think you've really unpacked that for the sites that we've designed. It's not just, what is it aesthetically, how does it look cool, but it's more like, what is the most important thing that I want to communicate that's different about my firm compared to everyone else. So I want to start with staffing first, or the creative team that's involved in building a site, because we hear this a lot. I especially hear this, our sales team hears this, is, Hugo, I don't need a website. I've got Squarespace, I've got Wix, and those tools can work if you're really proficient at these tools. But realistically, even today, 30 years after, websites have become commonplace, you still need quite a bit of help. You need a lot of support staff. So where do you begin in working with people to build out strong sites that are going to last you several years?
Of course, I'm the first one that receives the project. I'm the project manager. I get the project at first. But the first people I rely into are the content writer, the photographer, and the videographer. And the idea is, with these three elements, to actually build the look and feel of the website. Because as I said, many people request the design just first at the beginning. I want to see how it looks like, but without a content that actually says what we are going to present in the website, we cannot do a good design. So we have the photographer and the videographer working on a site for the look and feel, and then we have the content writer making the sketch of what we are going to present in the website.
Got it. And so it's like, what's the first words that people see, like what is called like above the fold? Like what's the first thing that they see? Like, what does the navigation look like? What are the big headlines that they want to describe? Because the way you write, like the copy that you present, is sort of like the personality of the firm or of the office. And so you think that sketching that out first before colors, sketches, is more important than anything else?
Well, most of these companies, or maybe this is a part of another webinar, most of these companies already have a brand. So what we take, it's the brand elements, and with that brand elements and what they are working on, what they do, we take those elements and then we create this scheme to personalize their website. So what we do is to create the most powerful content, and then with this content, we are able to create the imagine of the website, all the design. So
Right.
I think that it's just that.
And generally speaking, once it sounds like that's like the most meaningful part of the start of the project. It's the content, and then once it gets to graphic design, web design, then having the SEO specialist make it, indexable, and then having IT support launch it. Typically speaking, from the moment it gets to you to the moment it launches, how long does that process take to get a website launched from the idea stage?
A good website with all the content, all the pages, SEO, everything, I will consider between 3 to 5 weeks.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
ideal
fast.
time.
Yeah, yeah. So we always encourage anyone currently building a site. If you're past, let's call it even the 2 month stage, it's probably a good time to start asking some necessary questions about where you're launching. I know this is a pain point for a lot of attorneys we talk to. It's the launch time of a site, and it couldn't be any. It's not easier, but any faster nowadays with all the available tools that have made bespoke or custom websites more effective to launch. So 3 to 5 weeks is a pretty strong timeline. Now, I want to talk about your approach, which initially, when you brought it to us, I thought it was crazy, but now it's the standard a few years ago. In that, yes, 94% of Hispanic adults prefer to use a mobile phone. You start building websites now for the phone, and then you expand it to desktop later. Um, Aside from the obvious reason that the trends of people wanting to use their phones, like why else do you build mobile first?
Well, there is another statistics that it's not there, is that 73% of all the traffic, the worldwide traffic, it comes from a phone. So everyone is using their phone.
Yeah.
Everyone is gonna check first on their phone. So all the user-friendly imaginary, all the design must be straight to the phone. Right
Yeah.
now, even Google are indexing first the design for mobile.
Mm,
So as everything is for mobile, why we're not be adapting us to that? So we need to create first the mobile design and then we adapt it to desktop. And the reason why is because of the use. You don't have to go further, like look into many things. Just think about yourself. How often
right.
do you use your computer? Probably for your job. But to actually look for stuff that you need in your daily life, an attorney, a doctor, do you usually use your computer? You use your phone. So
Yeah.
think about yourself. And because of this, we create our mobile design first and then we go to this.
Yeah. And but you bring up a good point, and it's also because Google says so, right? So it's like the internet gods have spoken. So if Google says, hey, companies, we like to list companies at the top who have better mobile sites, you kind of have to do what Google says. Even though there's a lot of hot takes that Google may not be what it is in 5, 10 years or so, which I'm sort of in that camp. Right now they are. They're still the dominant force of information. And so you do have to play by their rules. So I think it's a great approach. So anyone who's thinking about building their site, a new site, or currently working with an organization or a team or a consultant building a site, ask if they're building mobile first, not just because the Hispanic market prefers it, but because literally the general market, I believe the number is 85%, prefers to find the resources on their phone. Now, one of the stats I was looking into before we met today, Scenario, was about homepage visits. That 63% of consumers only visit a homepage, which to me suggests that the homepage is the most important uh, page to design and to put the most thought into, aside from your interior pages. So which sites and web pages convert the best, and which elements convert the best. So walk us through the best practices of a homepage.
Of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about the homepage, but it's important to say, and I just want to remark that if the homepage is the most important, yes, and this is the center of most of our job. The
Yeah.
whole website just turns around the homepage.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that something very important is that even though it's the most important of the site, we cannot crowd it with content, so it
Right.
has to go to a specific items that it will attract people attention. So
Yeah.
I think the first thing, it's the hero, what we call the hero, which is the first lines that the people see, and they have to express how you can help them. You cannot open the website and just expect that people are going to scroll down for sure.
Right.
So in first line, you have to say, what do you do? How can you help these people? And you have
Hmm.
to do it in a very short way.
Right.
Then we have to show the results. Why? Because people stay because you are doing something and you have done it for other people. You have to
Mhm.
show proof of what you have done. So we always recommend to keep the case results on top. Sometimes some companies, some law firms, they cannot show the case result because there are confidentiality issues and stuff. We recommend to show the testimonials, proof that you have done things for others somehow. If you don't
Yeah.
have testimonials, case results, but find a way to prove how you can help and how you have done it for others. Then, of course, we always encourage people to tell a little bit about your firm. We don't want you to put the whole story in your first page. It's not necessary. Just important items like your mission. Who are the main attorneys? Show yourself. And of
Right.
course, who vouches for you? Who are these
Mhm.
people that trust you? And other companies that are up to you? Just make yourself real for others. Like,
Yeah, like the trust badges are like what state bar do you belong to, what independent bar organizations you belong to, what radio stations have you broadcasted on, what newspapers have you thrown your ads on, as seen on. Yeah, these are great, and there are three more slides because you're trying to pack a lot of information on the page that will get the most visibility, right? So naturally, we want to be brief. We don't want to have long paragraphs. That's what I've noticed about your designs too and your launches, is that they're very efficient because most of the information is going to be read on a phone, not on a desktop. Let's get into this second slide here.
well, another thing that we need to show in our whole page, it's our practice areas, your services. I'm not saying that you're gonna put a paragraph of full of text of what do you do. No. Show impactful images with subtitles on which services do you offer. They have to be very specific, very short. Remember, people only read 28% of a whole website. So your website can have 8,000 words and people still are gonna read up to 28%. So it's important to use subtitles, to using images that demonstrate what do you do. Then why your firm? Explain very shortly, very briefly why your firm it's the one that it's going to help them, why your firm is different from others. And another thing that it's always important to do, it's to show the call to actions. How are they going to call you? Email you, contact me here, call me here. It's important to let them know what is the next step to talk to you. And of course, as I said in the beginning, the testimonials. I
I,
always put the case results first. And if you have testimonials, I also include it in the website. It makes it human. Like it's not just a website random that you took a template and you fill it out some certain information. Your website has to be human, has to show your picture, has to show what you have done. So I know I said this before, but it's just so important, and I cannot stop recommending this because testimonials and case result keep people in your website.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned one thing that also kind of beats convention. So let's take a look at this first slide. The phone number is at the top right, and nowhere
Yes.
on this page is it screaming or desperate for you to call in ASAP, because that just reeks of desperation if you're just begging for someone to call you. So we see this a lot in injury law, especially. It's like every 5 lines, it's just a big phone number or a form. It's like, settle down. Like the consumer is not ready to commit. You want to walk them through your testimonials, your value proposition. They want to see your picture. They want to see your firm. They want to see what your office looks like. So it's interesting to me that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps into the website, that's where you're asking for that immediate call to action, and then testimonials. The phone number is always there. It's self-evident. I think most consumers have conditioned themselves to say that, okay, the phone number is always at the top or usually at the very bottom. But it's nice that we don't have that, at least on a homepage, that desperation of just call us, call us, call us. Let's get into this third slide.
Yeah, well, I want to add a little bit of that. Just remember, when you're creating a homepage, it's not a sales page. You will have a landing page, you will have ads, you will have another things.
Right.
So your homepage is to convince people to stay with your firm, not just to sell. And in terms of that, you already told them to call you, and then you need to show them a little bit more. I always recommend to add the process. How does your firm work? What do you do first? First, I call you. Is your consultation free? Then when they call you, what is the next step? You're going to meet with attorney. Just tell them a little bit about your process so they know what to expect. Of course, people are going to have certain doubts. So I always recommend to have in the homepage a few frequently asked questions. As I said, like, is your consultation free? How many attorneys are there?
Right.
Do you take this specific type of cases? We always include a blog. And for the homepage, I always recommend to have a contact form at the end for the same reasons, because the homepage is not a sales page. It's an introduction to what do you do and what you can do for others, not specifically to sell yourself directly. For that, we have ads, we have social media, we have another ways of doing it. So I always recommend to leave the contact form at the beginning. I know, and this is a constant request that we always have, is to put the contact form at the beginning. I do recommend that maybe for landing page. That's something that you will have to ask for the experts. But as a web developer, as a project manager for web development, I recommend to keep it at the end for the same reasons.
Yeah, we actually we talked about this yesterday on the landing page module for advertising. If your form is at the bottom, and so this is namely for those that weren't with us yesterday. So if your form is at the bottom, and you receive a lead, a web form lead from someone that filled that information at the bottom, that suggests that they went through the whole page. They probably read a lot about your firm, about your website, about your services, and then they filled out their information. That suggests that is a highly qualified lead. That, to me, is as good as an inbound lead, potentially even better than a phone call lead, because they've taken the time to read. More than likely they've read it, or they've at least, perused it and then filled out their information. Versus someone who's just, if you put that form at the top, there's a reason that if you put a form at the top, it just attracts a lot of low quality leads. It just attracts people shopping around, just want to get fees, just want to get pricing. They just want fast information. Generally speaking, it's going to be a low value conversation. So I think that's super interesting. That where the form is placed will attract the right person or potentially the wrong person. One thing that I would like to add is that we see this a lot on homepages at the very top, where you'll see, especially if there's a bilingual website, if you have a bilingual website and you have a Spanish section, make sure it says Español and it doesn't say choose your language in English. Make sure it doesn't just say Spanish, because if someone is a native Spanish speaker, they want to see something like an entry point that is in their language. Really common, easy thing to fix. If you have a couple Spanish pages, make sure it says, haz clic aquí para español, or en español, or just something that is in the language, so that is the entry point for native Spanish speakers. Now, one of the things that you talk about in the content stage is that when you're producing these home pages, that the content is the most important part of the build. What do you say to attorneys that say, I'm just going to put Google Translate at the top?
Oof, it's a suffering, and I'm going to let you know why. I mean, I'm a Spanish speaker, right? And when I'm looking into products that I want to buy, and maybe this website is just translated, Well, I feel a little bit offended. It just dragged me down. Like this person didn't even take. I mean, they want to sell this product to me. They say they speak Spanish, and they didn't even take the effort into actually not translating correctly this website. Is just offensive. I don't want to buy that product anymore. I just don't want to enroll for that service
Right.
because you don't feel they don't have the commitment. It's a lie to me that they say we speak Spanish and then you go there and it's not done well.
Right.
And I don't know how everyone else as Spanish speaker, imagine you as an English speaker. Just think about yourself as an English speaker. You
Right.
go to a website that says speaks English and then you find that everything is translated wrong. Will you trust that service?
Right. No, no, absolutely not. Yeah. So it goes without saying, will Google Translate get better? This is kind of like the backbone of most multilingual, or that is rather Spanish speaking agencies. It's the reason that a lot of us exist, is because we know that Google Translate is just not there yet. There are a lot of language tools, and it will get better. It will probably get to the point where it's as good as humans, but it's just not there yet. So to Sunari's point, if you're not making the added effort of just making what I would argue is a nominal investment in actual human content, that could churn off a potential massive client base for you. And we've seen that in the past. We've seen Google Translate make countless mistakes. My favorite one is for there's this attorney named Robert Bell. And Robert Bell on his Google Translate website, I mean, he's fixed it since, but it said Roberto Campana, which is the literal translation of the word bell in Spanish. And it's my favorite example because it just shows you that you have good intentions, but the tech is not there yet. And so just make the nominal investment. We're talking a few $100s for a few thousand words of copy translated by a professional writer who knows the Hispanic market. Now, I want to get more into page speed, because I think this is what I would like to end on, because we're just about at time. But this is an interesting unspoken part about web design. I think this isn't talked about enough. I think this is the most important aspect of a website, aside from design and content and development. This is sort of like the elephant in the room, that most people will leave a mobile website if it doesn't load in 5 seconds. And I actually want to bring up another stat here. This is from a study about 10 years ago, which still holds true, by Amazon, that for every 100 milliseconds of latency there is in their app or their website, it costs them 1% of their sales. So that today translates to about $1 billion. So we're talking about milliseconds. And so the reason I think this is such an important aspect of a website, page speed, is because it will literally make or break a consumer's expectation, or it will reduce your conversion significantly if your site is slow to load. And there are a lot of implications. Your site may be loading slow because of the way it's built. This is a very common reason. For instance, let's talk about bloat scenario. Like, what do you see in websites that are slow to load? What is the most common reason that you see that they load slowly?
When it's built, the most common reason is images and videos. Images and videos are not uploaded correctly. They need to be compressed before uploading to the website. Then, if you're using videos need to be put in the website in a way that it doesn't affect the speed. So sometimes people just build a website, let's say Wix. I don't want to talk bad about builders, but the truth is, when you build yourself a website in one of these regular builders like Wix or Squarespace,
Right.
they don't have the the coding or the backend that it's appropriate in order to compress the images. So
Right.
the building itself is not the correct one. Or it just can happen that as an attorney, you have a lot of testimonials, a lot of videos that you want to include in the website. And then you put it into any builder and then put it everything on the homepage. This is gonna delay the speed of your website. So it's important to take into consideration when you are creating one, what are you going to put it and how are you going to put it? And this is the reason mainly why we have an IT person, a good web developer, because it's not just going to a builder and put whatever you have there, is that actually behind what you see, there's a lot of work into it. You
Yeah.
put a lot of work compressing images, putting the videos in a way that the speed is not affected. So these
Yeah.
are items that you need to take into consideration. Of course, there are others. The website is not rendering way, and there are many things post launching your website that can also affect the speed. But at the beginning, in the building stage, these are the main ones.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, just put your if you're thinking about your revenues, let's say you do $1 million in revenue per year at your office, and your website is costing you 1%. That's literally $10,000 that you could save just by addressing site speed. Now, we understand you're in the service line, you're not selling products like Amazon, but the fact that 3/4 of users will leave your website if it doesn't load quickly enough suggests that you are probably losing a lot of phone calls and form fills and leads as a result of how quickly or rather how slow it is to load your website. So now you mentioned great points. Bloated websites with videos and photos. This is the most common thing that we see all the time. We see people upload their 300 megabyte portrait on their website, and then they wonder why it's loading slow. The other reason that I see is that they have a website that has been managed by 10 different people over the last 5 years, and from completely different methodologies and disciplines of web design. Meaning there are web developers that are installing a bunch of different plugins that in the short term are just bandages. And then when we look at these websites on the back end, there's like 10 things that are installed that the consumer doesn't see, that provide no value to the office, provide no value to the consumer, but it's bloating the website. And so we have a question here. This is an anonymous one. It says, what are your opinions on a chat bot that pops up on my site that is in Spanish? So this is more of a preference based on the data that we've seen. Consumers don't want to be given a bunch of options. Here's a very common like homepage that we'll see for an attorney. You go on the website, it says call me now. There's a form, there's a chat, there's like a little video with the like an intake form. You've just given the consumer 4 different options, and that consumer likely doesn't know what is the best one to give them their ideal outcome. Just in general, I'm not a fan of chatbots. I'm just not. I've never seen them move the needle. I think they're great services, great tools for support or for client management. I'm just not a big fan of giving the consumer so many options. I think most people, again, they're on their phone. So they more than likely just want to text you, or they just want to call you immediately. If they read through the form and they fill it out at the bottom, they want to be spoken to. They want their story communicated to the firm so that the firm responds back. So my general opinion on chatbots is that 1, it gives the consumer too many options, and then 2, it just, again, it creates a bloat in your website. Like a really strong, and the reason I'm proud of the websites that we launch is because they're really lean. They very rarely have plugins. We code natively, and we're not just buying a bunch of things to present images and videos. They're really lean. So generally speaking, our methodology is run lean in the interest of site speed, because the site speed is a direct benefit or a direct disadvantage to your revenues. So, Sunari, thank you for putting these thoughts together. And thanks for your questions, everyone.